Hello, and welcome to A Lady Well Traveled. I'm your host and creator, Shannon Bednarova, and I'm delighted that you've joined me today. If you're new to the podcast, this show is all about travel, and what I want to do is help you transform your travel experience into something that's new, less stressful, and more meaningful. Today, I am so excited to welcome our guest, Briana Gervat. Briana is a photographer, a poet, an author, and a fellow traveler. And Briana has been on many incredible journeys, but her most recent journey was walking along the Western Front in Europe. And the Western Front is the front from World War I. Briana and I talked, and I am so thrilled that she's on the show today. Briana, please say hello to our audience.
Hello, everyone. Shannon, thank you so much for having me today. What a lovely way to explore the world through just stories and what you just had to say as well.
Thank you. In doing research for this podcast, I just loved your website, and I would encourage anyone who is listening after the podcast to go to your website. I'm going to give you opportunities to talk about how they can find all things Briana Gervat. And your website is beautiful with
Thank you so
beautiful
much.
photography, which of course you've done, incredibly beautiful poetry, opportunities to find out all about your books. And so we're going to just uncover all of that today in our discussion. So, is there anything else before we dive in that you want people to know about you that we haven't talked about maybe in my introduction?
No, I think I like the organic kind of
Okay.
authentic way of opening up. We're humans. There's so much about us. We're complicated, we're simple.
Okay, well, let's just dive on in there. You and I were just talking about history. I remember knowing exactly when I decided I want to be, involved in history, and I have a passion for history. I was in the 6th grade listening to my teacher, Mrs. Penny, read to us from the historical fiction novels of Anya Seton, and they were all about the royal families in the British Isles. They were wonderful and captured my imagination. And it was something from which I've never looked back. So, when did you become aware of your passion for history? And when did you make the decision to pursue that as a career path, as a part of your life's journey?
I think I had a very similar experience. I had wonderful teachers even in elementary school that
Hmm.
would, you saw history unfold before you. I went to elementary school at the end of the Cold War.
Oh, yeah.
You went to school during the middle of the Cold War. You watched it all happen and you were wondering what was going on in the world and if it was going to end. I think it was just that idea of being present for the history that was unfolding.
Hmm.
And then you learn that there were so many other times throughout history that people felt the same way. So it was just learning their stories and listening to the past to learn something about the present was always something that I was obsessed with. And then
Hmm.
when I was in 8th grade, we were learning about John Brown, who was the abolitionist. And I don't know why, but like I got obsessed with him. And then at the end of the year, my history teacher wound up giving me the John Brown Award, which I'm fairly certain I'm the only person in the world to have ever received a John Brown Award.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think history was always in me, like we were talking about before. I just think that history is just something you either love or don't understand or think you need to memorize when it's really just this constant unfolding of life.
I love that. Well, can you tell our listeners what compelled you to take your journey along the Western Front in the first place?
Yes. I'd walked the Western Front in 2022, and COVID had just started to not fade away, but the world was opening up again. And I wanted to experience the world again. I wanted to travel. I'm sure you missed it just as much as I did.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And 5 years before that, I had walked the Camino de Santiago, the Camino del Norte in Spain. And then the year before COVID, I had traveled, I had taken a road trip along the Civil Rights Trail
Mm-hmm.
in the American South. It was just an extension, it was just an opportunity to explore history in another part of the world. I always like to go places and spend time there to learn what we are capable of in both extremes, the devastation, but also the beauty and creation.
That's a great answer, of course. You also were taking this journey, and I think it's an amazing thing that you did. How did your experience, and I got this information off of your website, how did your experience studying genocide in Rwanda
That
prepare
was
you for studying later about World War One? Tell me about that.
So when I was in graduate school, I was an artist. I went to school for art history and I was getting my master's degree and I didn't know what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
study, but studying art history and I came across all of these terrible images of war. And you have this belief in photography that a
Right.
single image can change the world. That if you look at something
Mm-hmm.
that people will be moved to the point where we have no choice but to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're inundated with so many images all the time, the world is still not becoming a better place. The world is what it is. And so after I graduated from graduate school, I traveled to Rwanda and I just learned about what came after. There are so many incredible people living and working in Rwanda and that have been deeply affected by the genocide. There's family members that they lost. They're still healing and they are still forgiving one another for what they have done. And through that, they've created art.
Yes.
And the art is an example of that we might be capable of destruction, but we are also capable of so much beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And we need reminders of that on a regular basis. And I think that especially after COVID, after experiencing that trauma of those years,
Mm-hmm.
being able to travel someplace where there was something that was so tragic that happened was almost it flowed into it.
Mm-hmm.
It was there was no question about it. There's the Great War, there's the Western Front. We all just lived through something very traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
How do I reconcile?
Mm-hmm.
Why I need to go on a long walk to process all of these things that I feel, all of these emotions, but also to understand that humans are humans and we're
Mm-hmm.
never going to change. Or, most of us are not going to change.
Right. And I'm 62 years old. You're not. I've never been through anything that was as devastating as World War One, World War Two. You haven't either.
Yeah.
And probably COVID was our worldwide event that impacted everybody. We were all impacted. We all saw a lot of people die. We all lived in fear for a while because we just didn't know what was going to happen. And we were washing our hands every 5 minutes. We weren't allowed to go out in public. We had to stand apart from everybody. We had to wear masks all the time. I can remember watching the television every afternoon at 4 o'clock to get the updates from the government as to what was going on and how many people died and were the hospitals being overwhelmed. So I think that after coming out of something like that, we're trying to make sense of it and we're trying to look at other instances in history where the world was catapulted into this catastrophic era or period where everyone was involved, everyone was dealing with horror and devastation,
Yeah.
having something to compare it to, but also having the understanding of the resilience of the human being and that we all somehow made it through, didn't we?
No, absolutely. I think that you definitely encapsulated the whole sentiment. I feel like in a way I had to look back to look forward.
Mhm.
Like you said, we are very lucky living in America for many, many
Mhm.
reasons, and we
Mhm.
did not experience those devastating wars.
Right.
But to have lived through that is to be traumatized,
Mhm. Yeah.
to experience something that you don't know what the answers are, and and there's so much conflict still, and it wasn't necessarily a war, but it was something similar to or
Sure.
adjacent to.
Absolutely. I think we won't know the impacts of COVID on our country for many years to come. Whether it's the kids who weren't able to go to school, if it's getting the vaccines, whether it's how we all had to socially distance, all of the impacts on our mental, emotional, physical, our psyches, how were we really destroyed during those times? It's something I think we're going to be studying for a very long time.
I totally agree with you, and that's a lot of the reason why I went on this trip. It wasn't just because I love history and I
Right.
love France, but it was just that I felt those things. I questioned that the entire time of the shut of that the
Yeah,
world shut down, and I couldn't process it staying in one place. I couldn't just
right.
stay there and let it be rolling in my head over and over again. Like I needed a way to move through it. And if I wasn't going to be able to move through
Absolutely.
it, how was I going to get beyond that?
I certainly understand that. So I explore how travel, hiking, walking can be so extremely therapeutic and healing with almost every guest who's been on my show. As we have unpacked during this discussion, do you feel that your trip was able to help you heal from the trauma that you experienced during COVID and any past pain? Tell us a little bit about that in accordance with your comfort level. What did you discover about yourself when you were on this journey along the Western Front? What did you feel about your perspectives about yourself? What shifted during your experience? What did you learn? How did you grow? Tell us about that.
That's a lot to unpack.
I know
So
it is. I'm sorry.
no, no, why are you
It's
sorry? I
like,
think
wow.
this is Shannon, this is what we're meant to talk about. We're meant to actually really
Yeah.
dig into the depths of our souls and our psyches and our
Yeah.
emotions. And that way we can trudge it up, or we can learn from it or become
Sure.
better. Yeah.
Sure.
So I think when I first started out, it was with relief.
Yeah.
I was out in the world again. I had my backpack on and I was walking and it was difficult. And my physical experience matched my emotional turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
I would cry randomly, and not
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was in pain or I was in emotional pain. I
Pain.
would cry
Yeah.
all the time and just I'd be like, I don't understand anything. Here you have this devastating landscape of World War One, and you see that all these men fought for 4 years, and it was over 100 years later, and we're still doing the same thing in one way or another.
Yeah.
And it hurt so much because
Mm-hmm.
recognize it within yourself and you see which ways you're traumatized. I think that the walk really helped me learn the ways in which I was not processing the trauma that I experienced in my life, or that I was able to look back and say, I have experienced X, Y, and Z, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
way I've reacted to it. Now, is there a better way? Is there not an easier way, but is there a way that I can work through? I lost my best friend when I was 9 years old.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's hard.
It was really, really hard. And the rest of my life was spent in grief.
Yeah. Yeah. I got it.
And it was grieving so hard. And then I think I studied history so much so I can grieve more.
Yeah.
So I can sit there and
Absolutely.
say, I am not alone. This has happened to so many other people.
Sure.
And yet I felt so alone. So I
Yeah.
think that walking the Western Front by myself, it was almost like cathartic because I already felt alone. I was already so isolated in so many ways. And so I could work through that and I could allow myself to cry and to break down and to not be weak, because I don't think that crying is weak. I don't think
No.
that revealing emotion is weak by any stretch of the imagination, but to allow myself to be up until I walked the Western Front, I did not allow myself vulnerability. Well, I didn't
I've got to be
expose my
strong. Yeah.
yes,
I've
always
got to
strong.
be strong.
Always strong, strong in so many ways. And then strong also proved myself, oh, I can walk the Western Front.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives a shit? Sorry,
Yeah.
pardon my French.
That,
Like I can walk 500 miles across France. That doesn't prove anything. It might show I have physical fortitude. You can be hard in so many ways, but where's the softness?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And really,
Exactly.
I think the title of my book is There Will Come Soft Rains. And I think that the softness comes from experiencing that, the experiencing the vulnerability and allowing yourself to be open to every emotion that you feel and accepting it and moving through it and not fighting it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what did you find in your walking? Because I know sometimes traveling, walking, all of it has been so healing for me and the trauma I've experienced in my life. And I don't know what you find the most healing, but I know being near water, waterfalls, rivers, oceans is very healing for me. Also, being near mountains,
Mhm.
and being reminded how small I am. I don't know if you're a person of faith. I am. And I always love to be reminded that I'm here and God's there and there's something greater than I am. And that to me is very healing. I love being in nature because that reminds me that life goes on. The birds are there. The birds keep singing and everything keeps growing and the trees keep growing and the flowers bloom no matter what. No matter if COVID happened, no matter if World War I or World War II or this conflict in Iran. No matter what's going on, all of the nature continues. And I think that's one of the things that helps me.
I love that. I think that's such a beautiful way to put it because I feel the very same way.
Mm,
I try to walk every day in nature. I try to be outside. I
yeah.
try to get the morning sun. And I do have faith as well. And I think the biggest blessing, the biggest experience that I still return to every day in my heart is that not only did I experience God in nature, but I was able
Yes.
to come across cathedrals as well.
Yes. Oh, yes. And
And
I want to
so
talk about that too.
yeah. And so it was this idea that just the way the light would move through the trees and the forest and the way the sun would rise. I woke up every day grateful of being able to live this experience and to cherish this and to
Yes.
just sit there and place my faith in God or a spirit or a higher power other than
Right.
me
Yeah.
that is going to walk with me and
Yes.
share this time with me. When you're in nature, I think that you get these beautiful reminders. It's like a knock on the door of your heart and say, "Hey, I'm here. Open up. Open
Yeah.
up. Here it is."
Absolutely. And your cathedral of the trees analogy is perfect because when you see the dappled sunlight coming through the leaves, it's a beautiful stained glass. And God puts you in places you can worship all the time. You don't have to be in a church or a cathedral. There are so many beautiful cathedrals and churches and basilicas in Europe. And I love that too. But isn't it wonderful how we can always just find a place to worship in nature at any time? Anytime. So let's talk about your title of your book and how you came to choose that title because I love that story. Would you share that with your audience?
Yes. So I had been working on my book for about a year and a
Mm-hmm.
half, and I didn't know what to call it. I knew I was writing a book. I knew I'd walked 36 days along the Western Front and I had completed the journey. I knew the arc of the story, what I wanted. I knew what the story was, but the story was nothing without a way to invite you into the story.
Right.
I picked up Ray Bradbury's On Writing.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm reading through, and you always learn little snippets of how you can write better, especially from someone as good as Ray Bradbury. He was writing about how he had written a short story that was titled There Will Come Soft Rains. He had said that it had come from a poem written at the end of World War I.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I read that line, I looked up the poem, I looked up the poet. It was a woman named Sarah Teasdale, and I said, "You know what? That's the title of my book. That is
Mm-hmm.
There Will Come Soft Rains," because it would rain so much over the course of my journey that it just made sense. There will come soft rains. And it goes back to what you were saying before, that nature goes on. That's what
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Teasdale writes in her poem, that nature goes on, that we can live through all of these things, but nature will not
Right.
stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that title, once I had that title, everything else almost fell into place. And it was like you said before, God puts us where we're meant to be. And that was put in my vision to put me where I wanted to be as well.
I love that story. It's so emotive and it makes you envision the healing tears of God coming and washing the land clean after war. It really does.
No, absolutely. And I felt that way. I always think about rain, and not in the catechismic sense,
No.
but more, I think of rain as a baptism. That if you're going through
Yes.
anything in your life, if you're experiencing something and a rainstorm comes,
Mhm.
let that rain wash over you.
That's
Let
right.
it baptize you. Let it bring you into something bigger, something more, and use that as a cleanse, as a way to just really wash away it, and it might not wash it away permanently, but just
Sure.
just let it come over out in waves. Let it just
That's right.
flow.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for sharing that story with the listeners. I think that's so beautiful. Now, did you write any poetry when you were on your journey?
I
Not
I
much.
did I did write poetry, but I
Okay.
found that during COVID, I was so glued to my phone that when I'm on my phone too much, my brain is not my own.
Right. I
It
got
then
it.
takes on the thoughts of other people and everything. So I was scared after COVID. I was scared that I wasn't going to be able to write poetry again.
Oh, my.
And it hurt because words used to be come just into
Hmm.
me, and they would just, and I'd be able to figure out something. But being on my phone so much and feeling like the need to be so connected to everything else, those words were not available to me as readily. I wrote two, like, but they were small poems. I just felt like walking, experiencing what I was experiencing was poetry in itself. So I wasn't focused on the writing aspect. I was focusing on the actual walking and feeling.
Yes. Okay.
There was a day that I was walking, it was on the Dam,
Hmm.
and they fought in, like, a cave underneath the ground, and there was fighting over a head, and you get to go down into this cave, and you get to see how they lived, and Germans were on one side and French were on the other, and they could hear each other echoing, and then when I resurfaced, the words came to me, and I thought,
Hmm. Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is just war, war, it is life without air.
Hmm.
And but it just made sense that it was just war is life without air.
Yes. Yeah. Very much.
Yeah.
As I said, I loved your poetry. It was very Goethe-esque, very romantic, very melancholy. I was like, my goodness, there's a lot there. So, would you do us the honor of reading or reciting one of your poems? I know my audience would absolutely love that.
Sure. All right. So I'm going to choose a poem that I wrote when I was in Wadi Rum.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So we talked
Yeah,
about nature
yeah.
and we talked about healing and everything else like that. So this is a poem that I wrote when I
In
slept a
Jordan,
couple.
right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
slept a few nights in the desert and I just couldn't get enough. I was sad to leave.
Okay.
So the name of this poem is In the Land of Pink Wind. Give me a second. The moon rose, not yet full, just after the sun surrendered to it the last of its light, and each grain of sand blushed, as if only now, at so late an hour, remembering the mountains they once were. When the last of the Bedouin lullabies faded into the shadows, I began to sleep the sleep of 1,001 nights, the moon my pillow, the stars my blanket, and the wind 1,001 kisses in the darkness. Morning came as slowly and as quietly as the night, the light returning long before the rising of the sun. And like the slow coming of day, my thoughts turned slowly to this. If this life offers me love, not in the form of a lover, but rather peace in this place of both silence and space, then happily will I return to the arms of this desert and allow my heart to grow still.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
You're
That's
welcome.
lovely. Yes. So, again, I want to encourage anyone who's listening to go to Brianna's website and read her poetry. It's fabulous.
Thank you so very much, Shannon.
Well, it's true. I must say, I find a lot of modern poetry drivel.
Yeah, I do too.
And I really did not find yours to be that way. And I was very, very happy. So, thank you for
Thank you.
giving me
Thank
the
you.
gift.
It's funny because sometimes I read poetry and it still surprises me that I write poetry
Uh
because I
huh.
don't actually enjoy reading it very
I
much.
know.
I read, but I love Rilke and I like the romantic poets. I love the
Yes,
people that are
me,
sitting there and
yes.
saying, like, I have this passion, I have this obsession, I have this emotion, I have this darkness, I have this light, and I'm going to tell you every single thought in my head.
Yes, and I love, like I said, that's why you just hit me. She's so Goethe-esque that I'm just like, wow. Woo! Okay. Now, tell me about, was there any sight that took your breath away due to either the sheer magnitude of it, the human tragedy of it, the destruction of war, the beauty that you saw along your journey on the Western Front?
Every day there was something that was beautiful, but I always go back to Verdun.
Okay.
So I had approached Verdun and there was this massive rainstorm, Shannon. It was a rain that I feel like we talked about this. You know, when the storms come in South Carolina and you're just like, this is violence. This is violence on a level that so I had a storm like that and there was nowhere to turn to. There was nowhere to escape. I was walking through all of these fields.
Wow.
And then you're getting to Verdun and it's almost like that was my invitation. It was like, "Oh, you wanna go to Verdun? Oh,
Mhm.
you wanna walk? You wanna get there? We're gonna show you what it was like." Like, it was almost like God being like,
Mm-hmm.
this is your baptism by rain.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to Verdun and I had slept I'd camped out all the nights before I got to Verdun, and I arrived there and, like, if someone looked at me, they'd be like,
Who is this
"Yeah, what is
brown
she?"
person?
Yeah, Lou is this feral creature. But I got to Verdun and it was like you feel like you walk through like when you go through a veil somewhere where you're passing and you just feel like you're entering a space that's so different than everywhere else.
Right.
Verdun was like that. And then you get to go up this shaft. So they have memorials there, they have a museum, and they have cemeteries, and then they
Mm-hmm.
still have, a lot of the fortress, a lot of the battlefield. Like you still see the mortar rounds that went
Yes.
into
Yeah.
the concrete. And there's still signs everywhere that say like danger, keep out because it's,
Right.
there's still shells. But you go see this ossuary and you see the 130,000 souls
Mm.
of bones.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
just and you're like, what are their names? Who are they? Did their families come here to look for them? Like, did they ever find them? And how long did they wait for them to come home? And then you go to this. So the monument, the ossuary at Verdun, is this shaft. So it's this beautiful sandstone or limestone. It's just white, and there's the Tower of the Dead, which is in the middle, and you can walk up these stairs to the top where there's this bell.
Yeah.
And you look out across the battlefield and you just think, my God, they stayed here for almost one full year.
Here. Yeah.
And
Killing each other.
yeah,
Yeah.
but in the most violent, unfathomable ways. Like it was
Mustard
just,
gas and trench warfare and just horrible
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And that people survived that. And then we wondered why they had shell shock or they
Yeah.
were like disregarded when they came home. And we do the same thing to our soldiers now. So it's like, we didn't learn. So you look at it and you think, my God, so you had the war to end all wars. You had this monstrous battle. And then we still had war afterwards.
Yeah. Do you feel like there were ghosts or spirits, or were you comforted by God while you were there?
I am very spiritual by nature. I call for protection
Mm-hmm.
and I ask for safety. Yes. And so I had gotten 2 rings made before I left. One was ruby, so
Mm-hmm.
I wore that as a ring of protection, and then I had one of my favorite jewelers, my friend Kate Sidney, make me a ring with sardonyx, look like trenches and no
Mm-hmm.
man's land.
Mm-hmm.
I would hold on to that and call for protection, and if there were ghosts, that I was there to walk with them and not
Right.
to intrude upon their and it never felt unpeaceful, like, it
Mm-hmm.
felt like almost as if and I said that too, in my book, I said, "All the soldiers are sleeping now.
Yeah.
Let them rest.
Let them
Let them
rest.
rest."
That's right. And pray for the rest of their souls, that
Yeah,
God will give them rest.
and I think that after traveling for so long, I think that they do, and I think that, you felt that it was a terrible straw that they drew,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's a haunting there as much.
Right.
I mean, maybe other people feel that way, but I
Mm-mm.
didn't feel that way.
Yeah. And I'm glad. I'm glad that that's the case. So let's talk about some happy things.
Yes. Let's talk about them.
Tell me about the most interesting person that you met on your journey. And that can be, a farmer, a housewife. I don't care. It doesn't have to be anybody famous, just somebody who just captured your imagination.
Well, I had gotten to Verdun, and you've traveled, so like when you get to France, it's not that you can show up to your hotel at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you come here at 5, and
Yeah.
if we're here, we're
If we're
here, and if
here, we'll
not,
let you in.
yeah, and if we're
Otherwise,
not,
go yourself a place to have a glass of wine. And yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I had gotten to Verdun and I didn't necessarily plan a place to stay, but I'd found a hotel and I'd camped out the night before. So I was like, I'm going to get a nicer hotel. I'm going to find a place that definitely has breakfast and whatever. So I come into this hotel in the center of Verdun and this very handsome gentleman opens
My.
the door. Yes. He was so handsome and he just looked like an absolute angel.
My.
And we had talked and he was so soft and it was almost like he was a reflection of how I want to move through the world one day too. And so we had spoken and then he let me up into my room and then he had smiled when I came back down again, recommended a restaurant down the street. And then the next day, he puts food out for breakfast, and the bread is warm. And then he's like, "Do you like cheese?" And I'm like, "Of course,
Oh,
of
of
course, I like
course.
cheese."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Do you like jam?" And then we just have this whole conversation in French. And my French is not very good, but it's good enough. His English is minimal, but we're having this beautiful conversation about esprit, which is
Mm,
spirit and faith and hope and
mm.
meaning and life. And so it's raining in Verdun that morning. And I say, "I'm going to go to the cathedral." And he goes, "Yes, go, go, go." And because I could have stayed and talked to him forever and ever and ever. And then I went up to the cathedral and I had the cathedral all to myself.
Mm.
And in the light, you were saying about the dappled light and the stained glass and stuff, the light came in such a way in the cathedral that I just thought, "Oh my God, like people, these artisans created this space so this light could do this."
Yes.
And I just sat there and it was such a beautiful moment.
Mm.
And so when I got back to the hotel, Fabrice was still there and I showed him the pictures and I'm like, he just takes one look at these pictures and he says, "C'était un cadeau." He's like, "That is a gift. That was a gift." And I just sat there and I just looked at him. I looked at the pictures and I cried because
Mm-hmm.
it was a gift.
Yep.
It was such a gift, and it was a gift not only to have that experience, but also to be able to share it with this man that was a true angel.
The Bible says perhaps you're entertaining angels unaware. Perhaps you were entertained by an angel unaware.
I
Yeah.
love that.
He was a such a comforting spirit to you. So
Very much so.
perhaps that's who he was. And shouldn't we all be that way? Yeah.
It's a good way to look at life, we
Yeah.
can all sometimes we're the angel, sometimes we're the protector, like we're protectees.
Yeah. Or we're the person that needs that angel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably did after your long journey. So he
Yeah, no,
was there
definitely.
to care and comfort you. That's so nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I sent him a copy of my book afterwards, and he's like, "I got it. This is great."
That's so neat. Would you recommend doing this journey to any other like minded individuals who want to uncover history?
I'd recommend bits and pieces unless
Okay.
you have the time to do what I did. I really took the time to go out there and to do this walk. So if
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the time to do it, maybe pick the different battlefields or do it like concentrically. Like pick a place and then visit all the sites in that battlefield and
Okay.
then maybe go back and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're stubborn and you really want to walk 500 miles through rural France, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, and are there options for people who maybe don't have that amount of resolve that you do? Can you do it by car, horseback, bike? Or are there options for that?
Yeah, there's so many people that go through and do it by like they cycle the Western Front.
Okay.
They can do that in 10 days, maybe less.
Okay. Yeah.
Horseback, maybe, but then you have to think about where you're going to keep the horse and there's more.
I didn't know if there was a tour group or that perhaps arranged that.
Well, there's so many wonderful battlefield guides. My friend Ronald, he does Verdun. He's a
Okay.
battlefield guide there. You can find people that go and like their specialty is the Somme, the Marne, Ypres. You can go on these battlefield tours for a few days to get your feet wet into these places.
Okay.
But also,
Wonderful.
history is a lifelong study, and you
It
could
is.
study one battle of the Great War.
I love that. Now, you were telling me that you've walked the Camino de Santiago, other things. Do you have any more plans to do further great journeys or walks in the future?
Yes, after we get off, I'm gonna go walking in the woods.
Okay.
But no, I want to walk the Dolomites. I want to hike the Hut to Hut.
Nice. Because I was wondering about, have you ever heard of the Incan trails in Peru?
Yes, I want to make my
Okay.
way to South America soon, but I just don't know exactly what capacity I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, okay. Just got back from the Galapagos in Peru, and there were so many hikers doing the Incan trails, and that was so fascinating. And they have what their version of the Sherpas are. For each hiker, it takes three of their Sherpas to move you along the Incan trail, but it's beautiful. Oh, my goodness. So, something that you may want to consider sometime. I was wondering if your next thing on the agenda for travel would be another monumental walk.
No, I have one in mind, but it would take it's like 2,000 miles, and there'd be a
Woo,
lot
girl.
more. Yes, there'd be a lot more planning involved, a lot more I can't just don a backpack. I have to
Yeah.
move through places and
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
there's a war in part of it, so, I mean, there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, gotta, okay, well,
You know,
yeah, I got it.
gotta skate along, make sure you're safe. And there's also
Absolutely.
weather in winter to, like when you're walking that far, it takes a lot longer, so it would
Oh,
be a
yes.
longer journey, and where do you start? Where do you finish?
Absolutely. So, were there any places that you ate, stayed, or sojourned that you would highly recommend for our listeners if they decide they want to go and do this trip?
Yes. So there's this one place in the lake area, which is Lac de Medine. There was this hotel and it had like, I don't know if it was a Michelin star or like it had a Michelin chef or something, but it was just this beautiful meal. And if I had walked
Okay.
further that day, I would have stayed at that hotel, had dinner, had breakfast, and it's right on the lakes there. So it's just this beautiful, lush region that is just fun to be around.
Okay. Fabulous.
And no, I'm not gonna recommend this other place because it's usually really quiet, and I like having the cathedral all to myself, so
Okay. All right.
if you ever get a chance, Clems, to go to
Okay.
Champagne and to
Yes.
drink champagne and to see that cathedral is
Yeah.
something that is should be on everyone's bucket list.
Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And before we close, I hope that you will tell our listeners how to find out everything about you and how they can read your poetry, buy your books, all your social media, everything. So take it away.
Alright, so you can find me on my website, it's theperegrineprogram.com, but you can just put brianagervat.com and it's the same thing. You can find all my photographs and my books there. You can find my book There Will Come Soft Rains on Amazon. And then on socials, I have had some misfortune in the last few days where my social media has been disabled.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get that back. And so I'm gonna maybe start a YouTube channel as well. So or I might just take a break for a little bit and enjoy the spring and summer.
There you go. No problem with that. I think your website pretty much covers everything somebody might want to know about you and then reading your books, which I'm looking forward to doing as well. Thank you so, so much. I hope you will come back again.
I love this, Shannon.
This has been wonderful, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, fantastic. I just want to remind our listeners to let us know what you thought of the podcast. And if you have questions for Briana, you can send them to me, or I'm sure if you send them to her, she'll be happy to answer them for you. You can reach out to me at Shannon at A Lady Well Traveled. That's Shannon at A Lady Well Traveled, and traveled with 2 L's, please. And you can find me and recommend me to your friends and family. I'm on all the streaming platforms. And remember that God created this big, beautiful world just for you. All you have to do is get out there and see it. So until next time, bye bye.